bagaimana shock dari COVID ini betul-betul memukul dan kemampuan kita untuk mengcounternya tidak bisa menetralisir cukup besar.
Memprioritaskan kesehatan bukan berarti mengorbankan ekonomi. Sekali lagi, kita harus mencari keseimbangan yang pas.
Things are looking up. Your business is growing. So what's your next step? A bigger office? A new supplier? Your next big contract overseas? Your business has growing needs. You'll need more support, more flexibility, more resources, and a bank that makes it their business to help expand your business. Welcome to Business Banking with HSBC. All our experience and expertise brought right to you so that you and your business can take the next step. You'll have support from a dedicated relationship manager and access to our global network of experts. The flexibility to manage your finances across multiple devices. International accounts all on one platform. And much more. So choose Business Banking with HSBC and take your next step.
Hello and welcome to the 7th Annual Indonesia Economic Forum. We are broadcasting live on Zoom from Jakarta to the world. Over the past 2 days, we have had nearly 1,000 participants join us from around the globe as we discussed a wide range of issues that have real impact on the lives of Indonesians. We have been honored to have been graced by senior Indonesian government ministers, policymakers, business leaders, who have been joined by global thought leaders and experts. They have shared with us deep insights, new ideas, solutions, and most importantly, charting a new direction that Indonesia can take in the post-COVID-19 world. Perhaps the biggest takeaway from all these discussions is that we are now entering uncharted waters in many areas. Trade patterns, sustainable finance, governance, consumer behavior, the future of work, global and regional geopolitics. To succeed in such a fast-changing environment, individuals, corporations, governments, and societies must adapt quickly. Innovation has always been critical for any nation to succeed, but never more so than today, as the COVID-19 pandemic has so dramatically shown us. Before we get started, I would like to thank all our partners, HSBC Indonesia, Sembcorp Development, Jababeka Group, the Victoria State Government, Intel Corporation, and Asia Pacific Fibers. Without your support, this forum would not have been possible. I would also like to thank all our content partners, the Indonesia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, KADIN, the Singapore Business Federation and Global Connect, Castle Asia, the Singapore Chambers of Commerce in Indonesia, AmCham Indonesia, the IABC, Indiana University ASEAN Gateway, IU Indonesian Alumni, Orbit Future Academy, Kairos, Cognito, Cultus, and Synthesis Communications. This is our third and final day of the forum. We have put together a great lineup of speakers who will be touching on some core issues such as higher education, the agri-tech revolution, new digital frontier, and of course, new investment trends. So, let's get started. Our first session today is about collaboration in a critical sector, higher education. Indonesia and Australia have both ratified the Indonesia-Australia Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. which now paves the way for greater connection and partnership between institutions of higher learning in both nations. This session that we are about to host is a perfect example of how effective collaboration can be, as it was a joint effort between the Indonesia Economic Forum and the Victoria Trade Government and Investment Agency. A very special thank you to Joanna Hashim and her team for being such great partners. And also a thank you for Ms. Rebecca Hall for joining us this morning. I now hand over the floor, or rather the screen, to Phil Turtle, the President of the Australia-Indonesia Business Council, who will be your host. Phil.
Welcome everyone to this morning's session of the third and final day of the 7th Annual Indonesia Economic Forum, Rebooting Growth Post-COVID-19. Again, I'm Phil Turtle, National President of the Australia-Indonesia Business Council, and it's my very great pleasure to moderate this session alongside my colleague, Pak George Iwan Marantika, National President of our sister organisation, the Indonesia-Australia Business Council. Firstly, I'd like to thank Pak Shoaib Kagda, founder and CEO of the Indonesia Economic Forum, and Global Victoria for their kind invitation to be with you today. I would acknowledge our opening speakers, Professor Bambang Brodjonegoro, Minister for Research and Technology for the Republic of Indonesia, and Rebecca Hall, Commissioner for Victoria for Southeast Asia. This session has the theme of fostering connection and strengthening relations, a higher education dialogue towards a successful Indonesia-Australia Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, commonly abbreviated as Ia-Cepa. And we have a distinguished lineup of speakers and panelists with us today to explore this. The Ia-Cepa has been more than a decade in the making and finally came into force on the 5th of July this year, when AIBC was delighted to host 1,700 registrants online with our Minister for Trade and Investment, Senator the Honourable Simon Birmingham, to officially welcome the agreement. The AIBC and IABC have been together instrumental in achieving this historic agreement through our work as foundation members of the Indonesia-Australia Business Partnership Group, along with Kadin, Apindo, the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and the Australian Industry Group. Amongst all the sectors that the Ia-Cepa addresses, education is one of the most exciting, high profile and prospective, and I'll look forward to hearing what our speakers and panelists have to share. I cannot overstate how important education is to the prosperity of both our countries and to bringing our nations and people together, particularly as both economies seek to recover from the ravages of COVID-19. I commend Global Victoria for the emphasis they place on the education sector in Indonesia and the good work they do more broadly. Of course, programs like the New Colombo Plan and organisations such as Achichis and the Australia-Indonesia Centre play an important role too in bringing together the higher education sectors in both countries. We'll hear today from many fine institutions in both countries, and I'm particularly excited that at the invitation of the Indonesian government, Monash University from Victoria will next year open the first foreign university branch campus in Indonesia. In their remarks and conversation, our guests will explore partnerships and focus on how higher education institutions can benefit from the Ia-Cepa in developing a range of collaborations. We'll hear what has worked in the past and how Ia-Cepa can foster more and deeper partnerships going forward. But first, to our opening address. Rebecca Hall is the Commissioner for Victoria to Southeast Asia and manages Victoria's interests within Southeast Asia, specifically by facilitating commercial engagements between business and by strengthening bilateral relationships through strategic collaboration. Rebecca rejoins the Victorian Government after 4 years leading international education strategy and programs with Austrade and Queensland Government. Rebecca is known for her focus on achieving outcomes and deep knowledge of international relations, and she has held various senior roles with local government, state government, federal government, and with universities and peak bodies. Over the past decade, her not-for-profit board experience includes appointments to the International Education Association of Australia, Australian Institute of International Affairs, Queensland branch, Queensland Overseas Foundation, and AFS Intercultural Programs Australia. Rebecca holds a Bachelor of International Business Relations and a Master of International Relations, and is also a graduate of the Australian Institute of Company Directors. In 2017, Rebecca was awarded the International Education Association of Australia's Leadership Award for her contribution to the sector. Welcome, Rebecca.
Bill, thank you so much, and thank you for taking on the hosting duties today. I am delighted to be joining you, our fellow panelists, and the audience here to talk about the important role that education will play as we look towards 2021 and the Victorian-Indonesia relationship. Colleagues, it's my delight to be here with you virtually, coming to you from Brisbane in Australia. My intention was to be in Jakarta this year, but 2020 has not gone to plan. I'm conscious that we have such an amazing array of panel members that I do want to keep my opening remarks short, and I want to just frame this conversation for how the Victorian government views our relationship with Indonesia and the role of education as the driving point for our success. As a Commissioner for Victoria, my task is to focus on trade, investment and education. And that means that we get to put education at the heart of both of those elements of trade and investment. And we get to work in partnership, as we are today, to develop new solutions, new ways of working, and hopefully improved outcomes for our citizens and our businesses. So there's no better time to be having this conversation. I think there are no better institutions than those that we have here today as well to be sharing their knowledge and insight. And I want to thank our three institutions from Victoria in Deakin University, Monash University and the University of Melbourne for not only their time today, but also I know their driving commitment to our engagement in Indonesia. To our institutions and partners from Indonesia, Universitas Indonesia, Bandung Institute of Technology, BINUS University, and Pelita Harapan University. I'm really looking forward to hearing your remarks today. And of course, to be sharing the platform with the Minister for Research and Technology from the Republic of Indonesia and the huge opportunity and task ahead of Professor Bambang Brodjonegoro. From our perspective, we stand ready to partner with government, industry and community to realise the benefits of our shared endeavours in education, skills and research. I just want to wish everyone well on the call. I look forward to listening, to hearing about the innovation happening here, but also to extend that beyond today's conversation into action and outcomes in 2020 and beyond. Back to you, Phil.
Well, thank you, Rebecca, and thank you again to you and Global Victoria for your support of this forum. This now brings us to our keynote address from Minister Bambang Brodjonegoro. Unfortunately, the Minister has been called away to deal with important matters, but he's kindly prepared a brief video presentation for us. Professor Bambang Brodjonegoro is the Minister for Research and Technology and Head of the National Research and Innovation Agency. He's been in this role since 2019. Previously, the Minister has held the posts of Minister of National Development Planning of Indonesia and Head of BINUS, and before that as Finance Minister. As an academic, Professor Brodjonegoro began his career as a lecturer at University of Indonesia, becoming the Dean of Economics faculty. As Finance Minister in President Joko Widodo's first cabinet, he initiated Indonesia's first tax amnesty scheme. In addition, he also designed and improved budget spending by allocating the very first direct transfers to all 74,000 villages in Indonesia. Professor Brodjonegoro completed his economics degree from the University of Indonesia before going on to complete his master's and PhD from the University of Illinois in the USA. And Minister Bambang has visited Australia many times and was our VVIP guest at AIBC's most recent international conference in 2018. Please, if we may now have the Minister's address.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Greetings to the committee and all participants. I'm delighted to join you on the special occasion at the 7th Annual Indonesia Economic Forum. Indonesia has a vision to be a high-income country in 2045. However, currently, Indonesia is struggling to escape from the middle-income trap. Furthermore, Indonesia's economy depends mostly on the use of natural resources, which is limited and therefore needs to be left out gradually. It means that we need to shift into sustainable concept to reduce the use of waste as well as to give more added value. To the Indonesia innovation products, in order to push economic growth, this can only be done through the enhancement of technology and innovation. Shifting Indonesia's economic paradigm from resource-based to be innovation-based has to be supported by budget allocation. Currently, Indonesia only allocates 0.28% of GDP to GDP. The budget is dominated by the government sector by 85%. Therefore, to encourage the industry involvement to do research and development, the government launched the super tax deduction to give a gross income reduction up to 300% of the total cost incurred. The pandemic we are facing has affected our economic sector significantly. However, it drives the rise of a less contact economy, which is characterized by hyperconnectivity among citizens using information and communication technology. An enhancement of the digital transformation. So it is safe to say that this pandemic accelerates the digital transformation in Indonesia. Along with the digital transformation, the rapid development of artificial intelligence is inevitable. The National Strategy on Artificial Intelligence was developed under the coordination of our ministry. To ensure the utilization of AI technology on 5 different sectors: medicine, good governance, research and education, food security, and smart city. Lastly, we believe that collaboration is very much needed in this unprecedented time. I hope that this event could open for a lot of more collaboration to create new knowledge and to increase the impact of research for humankind and welfare. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Minister. We hope you have safe travels and we look forward to having you with us again. That now brings us to the panel portion of this session, and I would now hand over to my friend Pak George Iwan Marantika, National President of the Indonesia-Australia Business Council. Pak George is a man of many talents, and apart from serving as IABC President, he is also the Chairman of the Australia and New Zealand Bilateral Committee in the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, KADIN. Mr. Marantika has pursued a career path in academia and business, having led a private university for 10 years as the Rector and President, and is currently on the board of several private universities in Indonesia. Mr. Marantika was elected to the board of the Association of Private Higher Education Institutions in Indonesia, APTISI, since 2011 as its Chairman for International Affairs and Relations. APTISI represents more than 4,000 universities and higher education institutes in Indonesia, and its members serve more than 9 million students and employ over 250,000 full-time lecturers and professors. He, with me, has been involved as a member of the Business Partnership Group of the Indonesia-Australia Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which produced joint position papers submitted to our governments. These joint position papers were amongst the anchors of the Ia-Cepa negotiations, and with his background in tertiary and higher education sector in Indonesia, Mr. Marantika injected the vital role of collaboration between Indonesian and Australian higher education, leading to collaborations in applied research and innovation to create business incubation as a main pillar of Indonesia-Australia bilateral relations. Mr. Marantika was educated in the United States, finishing his bachelor's degree in business from Biola University, Los Angeles, California, and his master's in business administration from the University of Laverne, California. Pak George, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Phil Turtle, our national president of our sister organization in Australia, the AIBC. It is an honor to be co-moderating this distinguished panel with you today. IABC, such as AIBC that is led by Phil, IABC, or the Indonesian Australian Business Council here in Indonesia, is a business council that its members are Indonesian and Australian businesses that are dedicated to the economic development of Indonesia and Australia. And so it is a true honor to be co-moderating this panel, and I want to commend the Indonesian Economic Forum led by Mr. Shweb Kagda, and also Global VIC, or the Victorian Government Trade and Investment Office in Jakarta, and also Ibu Rebecca, who we just heard, and the team in Global VIC, the very distinguished team in Indonesia. So this panel, I think, is one of the most strategic panel or strategic issues that is being discussed or agreed upon between Indonesia and Australia. And that is the higher education sector. It is probably one of the most significant pillars of the Indonesian-Australian relationship. And so, as in tune with the theme of this particular topic, which is fostering connection and strengthening relations of a higher education dialogue towards a successful Indonesian-Australian Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. The organizers, Indonesian Economic Forum and Global VIC, have organized very distinguished speakers today. We have today with us from the University of Pelita, Harapan, Dr. Gracia Ugut. We also have today with us from Deakin University, Professor Iain Martin, which is the president or the Vice-Chancellor. We have also with us from BINUS University, Dr. Diah Wihardini. From the University of Melbourne, Professor Dr. Vedi Hadiz. From University of Indonesia, Dr. Baiduri Widarnako. From Monash University, the Pro-Vice-Chancellor, Professor Andrew MacIntyre. And from the Institute of Technology Bandung, or known as ITB, the Rector herself, Professor Reini Wirahadikusumah, PhD. So a very distinguished panel to share with us today in a dialogue with the audience and with us today on the issue of how Indonesia and Australia can enhance its higher education convergence due to the Ia-Cepa context. But also, obviously, the pandemic is going to be a factor that will also play into this situation. And so with that, we will begin with Dr. Gracia S. Ugut, the Dean of the School of Business, Economics and Business, or the Faculty of Economics and Business of Pelita Harapan University, a very distinguished private university in Indonesia. And so with that, I give the Zoom floor to you, Dr. Gracia, to give your comments and remarks regarding this theme.
Thank you so much, Pak George, and for the introductions and also for this opportunity for us to sit down together. Thank you also to Phil and Ms. Hall, Rebecca Hall, for giving a very warm speech regarding this session. We have a distinguished panel together today, which we are going to listen very carefully to each, just to find out that where we can actually push forward given the situations that we face at the moment. So we do have a challenge in the short-term period, perhaps until the end of 2022, where most of the economy in the region or in the world, in that matter, that will still struggle how to get out from this pandemic. But in the long run, we should not actually lose our sight that how important is that to build that long-term relationship, go throughout, the challenges that we have, and why this kind of collaborations under this umbrella of International Business Council and also the Victorian government is very important actually to enhance our capability in each university. University Pelita Harapan itself actually has a long collaborations for dual degree in the undergraduate level for the with the three universities based in Melbourne, namely is Monash University, and then RMIT, and also La Trobe University. We are still enlarging this network because we believe that when we listen to the minister, it's very clear that the direction from government, which is very top down, saying that this is very important to move to the issue of technology and also basically collaborations cross-border that basically will enhance all the experience of the students and also, with the lectures and research and perhaps also some other things that we can offer to our students. But also at the same time, in the Indonesian context, recently actually Ministry of Education came up with the new blueprint that what they call as is an indicators of the Campus Merdeka, where in this blueprint, there are three biggest components that are related to the qualitas, which is the quality of the graduates, quality of the professors or the lecturers, and then the quality of the curriculum. And if you look into all these components of the main components of this Campus Merdeka concept, it's very obvious that collaborations is always part of it. And we are always talking about that, how we enhance also the students' experience and also the faculty exposure to the industry, which is now becoming very important. The same also in the type of the curriculum that we have to deal with right now, there are a lot of component of international component, which is not perhaps the case for much of the university practices in Indonesia. But also what I want to share is that the collaboration should not be only, limited to what we are talking about, having dual degree or double degree or, all these kind of collaborations. But also we have to see the opportunity that how we use technology basically to help, in delivering a very good programs that not only just good, but is also basically give an access to a lot of different type of people that will be needing actually good quality of educations, which I believe that the conversations that we will have after this with Professor Iain Martin from Deakin University, the Vice-Chancellor, that perhaps will highlight that the importance that how we will use this technology very effectively for reaching out beyond the borders, beyond the collaborations usually that we will have between two schools or some consortium. But also at the same time, it's very important for us actually to emphasize that the relationship also should be two ways of traffic. So it's not really like many of our students going to Australia, but in return, we are also kind of wondering if we can also have some kind of inbound students that coming in also from Australia. So it's not just outbound from Indonesia. Now, reason for that is that Indonesia, aside from geographically proximity with Australia, is also actually a living lab for one of the largest economy in the developing world, with all the problems that perhaps will not be available in the context of more developed economies. So I still remember one professor that we are collaborating with for a project is Professor Sitich Kapoor from the School of Medicine at the Melbourne University with our School of Medicine. And we are looking into all these possibilities to do quite a number of basically public healthcare issue that can be actually solved through some collaborations of research. And apparently, Professor Sitich has also some experience actually to do something like that with some other university like Universitas Gadjah Mada for developing certain vaccines with the funding from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So this kind of collaborations, transfer of technology is the model that we want to see. Go beyond the collaborations where we are about sending students or receiving students, but also create something, some experience that the students will actually appreciate when they come back. They have a better understanding about like what's going on in the fourth largest economy in the world, for example. So this is one of the things that I believe that collaborations has to be taken in so many different ways, not just classroom, but joint research perhaps, common internship together, sharing the industry experience across border, but also emphasizing on the industry, university, and government collaborations. And at the end of the day, definitely, what we are looking for is the opportunity to do cross-fertilization. Yes, we do partner with a number of universities, but bottom line is that we want to do something concrete with this kind of collaborations, something that actually will lead to possibilities to find something and to do innovation together. So these are all the things that we are looking forward, but like with all the opportunity that will come up from the Campus Merdeka opportunity, we will see that why collaborations is actually very important in bringing a lot of the new opportunity. And also the way we define our work is quite differently right now. We have most of the university in Indonesia, we will be forced actually to benchmark ourselves with the rest of the world. So that is really the situations that we are facing at the moment. I think that is what I have to share in this slot. Later on, we can explore through the Q&A. So back to you, Pak George. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Gracia. Very insightful input regarding this collaboration between Indonesia and Australia, the cooperation, economic cooperation, and how it could benefit the higher education sector. And now we move towards the next speaker today, and he is the Vice-Chancellor of Deakin University, a very distinguished university in Victoria, in Melbourne, Professor Iain Martin. Professor Iain Martin, the Zoom floor is yours.
George, thank you very much indeed, and hopefully the technology is working from Geelong. So look, I'm delighted to be here today. Deakin's had a really long engagement with Indonesia. We're a relatively young university. We were founded in 1974, but the links to Indonesia started quite soon in our life, and we've had a long-term commitment to engagement, teaching Indonesian. We've worked very closely with partners in Indonesia, and since 2014, for example, we've had 340 students who've traveled to Indonesia as part of Australia's New Colombo Plan. Our office in Jakarta and Deakin College based also there. It's clearly a key partnership for us. And I think looking to where we go from here, I think I'll pull back a little bit and think, right, what have we learned this year that will make us better at managing partnership in the future? So Deakin's had a long pedigree of distance education. It was part of our original mission in 1974. Of course, distance education in 1974 meant stuffing envelopes with photocopies and sending them out. I can assure you our technology has moved on quite significantly since then. But that gave us a huge platform to build on this year, and that has really served us well. But I think what it has also taught us is that we can use technology not to completely replace physical partnerships, but to augment and build in ways that really enable us to do more than we would have done before. There was always this reluctance to build relationships digitally because people would feel, oh, are we not taking it seriously? Is it not a commitment we're making properly? And I think we've learned a lot this year about using this kind of technology and others to really build those partnerships substantively. So I think you asked me, what do I think we need to take forward for next year? I think it is that hybrid approach. And that hybrid approach is going to underpin Deakin's future. And that's to say, doing in a digital environment what is best done digitally, and in a physical environment doing what is best done on campus. And I think the best universities of the next decade will be those that get that mix right. It's not one or the other. It's how you get that hybrid blended approach and allow staff, students, and partners to move seamlessly between the two so that we can maximize our relationships, maximize on building on those capabilities. And that sits very much at the heart of where we think we need to go to next. I think that then also offers up some really interesting approaches around university to university partnerships. where we're not so reliant on having to put students and staff on planes. We can do it when it works well, but we can actually do genuine digital interaction between classes and cohorts, look at new models of hybrid transnational education going in both directions, and really building flexibility, adaptability, and I'm not sure I particularly like the word, but personalization of our offerings so that students can choose and craft a pathway that suits them for the point in life that they're at, whether they are starting their education, beginning a career, enhancing their career, or indeed, as we've seen this year for a lot of people, having to swap at short notice between careers because the world has changed so quickly between us. The other thing that I think will be really important for our partnerships is how do we build the three-legged approach of universities, both governments and industry to work together to get really meaningful partnerships, pathways, and collaborations built up. Without all three of those components working in alignment, I think we are going to not be able to deliver optimally on what we should be able to do as a really exciting country to country, university to university, business to business combination of partnerships. When we move on to our other mission as a university, sort of research and innovation, yes, we are in some ways two different countries, but the one thing that being part of a globally facing university has taught me is that actually the challenges we face, the aspirations we have as a community, and the big problems we need to solve have a huge amount of commonality. And indeed, the similarities are far more striking than the differences in many ways. So whether it is thinking about how we build high quality, sustainable community life, whether it is around security, cybersecurity, new industries, optimal management of the environment where we look after environmental sustainability, water and energy, but at the same time build secure economic futures for our population, or indeed high quality, sustainable healthcare. We all share those. And again, I think there are some really exciting opportunities to see where Australia and Indonesia can build partnerships. The final comment I'd like to make is around that concept of partnership, and that is to say, what makes a good partnership? It's tricky because it's like many of these things, you know it when you see it, but it's really hard to put into a few words what that means. But the partnerships that I've seen work well have had clarity of purpose and mutual benefit, but also mutual investment. So both parties have got skin in the game. Both parties really want to see this work. And I think taking the conversations over the last few days, building things forward into more mutually beneficial partnerships that enables our students to cross over, our academics to cross over, sharing those research aspirations and sharing how we work together with business to develop and take things forward. After all, universities are about ideas and innovation is driven by ideas. But without the partnership with business and government, we're not going to be able to do and set in place the mechanisms to really turn those great university-led, university-developed ideas into things that make a real difference for the communities around us. This year has really focused our minds on what matters most for us as universities. I'm filled with a mix of trepidation about going into 2021 with still so many uncertainties, but a real sense of enthusiasm that if there were ever a place for strong partnerships, Indonesia-Australia relationships, underpinned by great higher academic linkages, it's next year and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Iain. As the Vice-Chancellor of Deakin, I've had an honor to be at your campus in Burford.
Yeah.
So you're coming in from Geelong.
I'm in Geelong, which is about 70 kilometres to the west of Melbourne. It's where our university started and where our office is, but at least until next week, we're still on a government-mandated work from home, which is where I am at the moment.
Very good, Professor. Well, you're a Vice-Chancellor of a very distinguished university and one of the leading universities in developing technology as a medium for learning and teaching. Now, I'd like to touch on 2 points that you mentioned because this is very strategic. Number one is the point that you mentioned about the collaboration between industry and higher education. And that is probably
I've just lost you, George, there. It's gone silent at my end.
Yes, and then secondly, sorry about that, Professor. And secondly, I'd like to also ask you a very strategic question. And because we're all going, you mentioned about hybrid, yeah, and we're all in Indonesia, we're going online here. Now, in your viewpoint, hybrid or online like this, in terms of learning outcomes, how will this change the whole accreditation model, not only in Australia and Indonesia, I think globally, because that is probably the biggest factor, I think, that would revolutionize higher education. Please give your comments or thoughts on that.
Okay, well, let's start with the industry one. So if we are going to have a successful economy, and by success, I don't just mean simple economic success, I mean sort of social and environmental and cultural growth alongside the economic growth, university and businesses need to work together, both for our education offerings to make sure that what we're doing as universities is meeting the needs of industry in terms of the kind of graduates that need to be out there, but also through our research and innovation, both coming up with new ideas that you can engage and work with business, but also I think increasingly importantly, having an organization with very porous boundaries so industry with challenges can come in and work in new ways with the universities to actually develop solutions. And I emphasize the new ways because if we look at how we've done things in the past as universities, yeah, it's really important we have solid PhD programs, but I look at our local engineering manufacturing companies, if I say, well, you've got to wait 3 years to get the answer, it's not going to work. So we're going to have to find different ways of engaging quickly with industry to innovate, to build together those ideas. The second point you made is, what does hybrid delivery mean for accreditation, educational quality? Well, I think it's going to change the way we think about things. It's certainly going to change the way we think about accrediting resources. But ultimately, for most of us, the accreditation programs we work with are about assuring people that our systems and processes produce graduates with the attributes that we say they're coming out with. So it's driven off those outcomes. And whether we are delivering digitally or delivering on campus, it's about assuring ourselves that those outcomes have been met and the standards have been met. We're going to have to adapt and change to make it work. But actually, I think not only is it possible, but I actually think it will bring us strength in the future because A, it will provide better access, but also I think it will enable us to personalize what we do a little more to meet the needs of a variety of student cohorts. For Deakin, we bring in slightly over a third of our students through the traditional school leaver route. There's about a third of our students who come in as mature adults into their first degree, and about a third coming in through postgraduate qualifications. They all come in with a different set of aspirations, a different set of needs. Some will want more campus, some will want more online. But what we have to assure them, and we already do this because even before COVID, 18,000 of our 64,000 students were studying fully online, that the qualification you get from Deakin is accredited as a Deakin qualification, whether it was predominantly digital, predominantly physical, or somewhere in the middle.
Yes, very, very, very good. Thank you, Professor Iain. That is, I think, very strategic input because accreditation assessment is probably going to be revolutionizing the way we conduct higher education in the future and how it connects with industry. So thank you, the Vice-Chancellor of Deakin University, coming out of Geelong, Victoria. Professor Iain Martin. Thank you very much. And now we move to the next speaker today. She is Dr. Diah Wihardini from a very distinguished university in Jakarta, BINUS University, private university, and one of the leading private universities in Indonesia. Ibu Diah, or Dr. Diah, the Zoom floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pak George. So good afternoon to all Victorian friends. Very good morning to my fellow Indonesians. So first, I'd like to express my gratitude to be invited in this forum. So I think I'd like to say that my first Australian experience started when I was in grade 11, attending a school in Devonport, Tasmania, as an AFS exchange student. So since then, I kept coming back and forth to Australia to do my degrees. So after spending almost 10 years in Australia in my younger years, I still call Australia home. So although my Aussie accent has been diminishing and now dominated by an American one, unfortunately. So anyway, so as a progressive private university, of course, BINUS is definitely very eager to strengthen ties and explore more opportunities to do them. So with the existing curriculum structure, BINUS has actually allowed our students to take double degrees, study abroad since about 4 years ago, aligned with the Merdeka Belajar program as mandated by the government. So we have also had a very strong ties with about 200 plus industries who accept our students as interns or even to recruit them. BINUS has also initiated and involved in a national university network called NUNI. So NUNI stands for Nationwide University Network in Indonesia, consisting of 21 private and public universities throughout Indonesia. Our main activities are student and faculty mobilities, as well as joint research, of course. So utilizing our network, perhaps we can explore more innovative ways for collaborations. And I think BINUS wish list for new types of collaboration is perhaps innovative learning programs, faculty mobility, and again, reiterating what Ibu Gracia said before, so more inbound students from Australia. So thank you. So I think that's my first remark, Pak George.
Thank you. Now, just to follow through on inbound students, how do you see the future of that, considering the pandemic? How would you be able to structure that?
Yes, thank you, Pak. So at the moment, I must say that our inbound and outbound programs have been, sort of course, impacted by the pandemic. But we have actually about 25 international students taking inbound programs with BINUS. So they are actually connecting online from their home countries. So again, if it is still very difficult for Australian students to come into Indonesia, I guess we can probably start by offering our very good structured online programs.
Yes, so thank you, Ibu Diah. So obviously, this is going to be you're going to have to be very innovative, yeah, on this particular aspect, yeah. Thank you, Ibu. So now we move on to the next speaker, coming out of University of Melbourne, Professor Vedi Hadiz. He is head of the Asian Studies and Center in University of Melbourne. And so coming out of Melbourne, Professor Vedi Hadiz, the Zoom floor is yours.
Thank you, George. Can you hear me, everybody?
Yes.
Okay, good. Also, thank you for to the organizers for inviting me to this very distinguished gathering of people. I'm Vedi Hadiz. I am a professor of Asian Studies and director of the Asia Institute in the University of Melbourne, but I'm also an assistant deputy vice-chancellor international in the university, and I do have special responsibilities for cultivating our collaborations and engagements with Indonesia in that latter position. I am an Indonesian, by the way, so you know, if we're talking about convergence between Australia and Indonesia in the realm of higher education, I must say that I'm a pretty fine representation of that convergence myself.
Very good.
University of Melbourne, as some of you will know, is one of the oldest universities in Australia. It goes back to the 1850s. And to be blunt with you, throughout most of its existence, it probably thought that it was in the UK. It has been very Oxbridge oriented for much of its history, European oriented and sort of looking at the United States. But then again, you know, that's not particularly unique in terms of the older universities in Australia. In recent decades, though, this orientation has changed, and we are looking at the place of Australia and, of course, Australian universities in our region much more seriously. We are talking very, very seriously and working very seriously with universities in China, in Japan, in Korea, in India, and in Singapore, and in Indonesia as well. In fact, Indonesia has been identified as a strategic partner country by the University of Melbourne. It is one of 3 Asian countries identified as strategic, the others being China and India. And the other strategic countries are the ones that you would have probably guessed, you know, the United States, UK, Germany, etc., etc. So Indonesia is in pretty good company there as a strategic partner of the University of Melbourne. Now, in spite of our, you know, admitted, acknowledged long history of Anglocentrism, even during that long period, actually, we did have a sort of a special kind of interest and attention to Indonesia. So, for example, we were one of the very few universities in Australia that was teaching the Indonesian language in the 1950s. So, you know, our sort of interest in Indonesian language, Indonesian culture, is started all the way back in the 1950s. And from there, we've developed actually a very strong and diverse sort of expertise on many things that have to do with Indonesia. So things started out with language and culture, and then developed through maybe, you know, aspects of the social sciences, politics, etc. In reality now, our business school, you know, our faculty of economics has very strong links with Indonesian universities. Our faculty of science, our School of Engineering has strong links with Ibu Reini's university, ITB, as well as our architecture. Our architecture people have a long-standing experience of working together with scholars in ITB, and also our medical school. So our medical school works with UI, University of Indonesia, Gajah Mada University, Airlangga University, It offers joint degrees, and it offers inbound students the experience of study in the University of Melbourne. The Faculty of Arts, where the Asia Institute is based, also has joint degree programs with the University of Indonesia and Gajah Mada University. We offer also what we call UMOS, University of Melbourne Overseas Studies subjects, whereby our students actually go to Indonesia. So go to our partner universities to study particular subjects in which we have a cooperative arrangement with our partners in Indonesia to teach that subject. Now, the thing is, although we have had this long-standing interest in Indonesia, it's only gotten stronger and stronger. So last year, I presided over, together with my Vice-Chancellor, the announcement of a new Indonesia engagement strategy, which outlined a 5-year plan, really, of strengthening and diversifying our relationships with our Indonesian partners, and defined broadly government, business, universities, of course, being prominent there. Now, within that engagement document, you would expect that an Australian university will go, okay, we want more Indonesian students. Obviously, the route of having those relationships in the area of student relations, bringing in students from Indonesia is important. We have many alumni from Indonesia who are back in Indonesia in very important positions as well, and that's very important. But it's much more than that now. What we are actually emphasizing here is collaboration. Collaboration, especially research collaboration. And being Indonesian myself, I do get away with saying things like, we really need to up our research capacity in Indonesia. And I can say that because I'm Indonesian. And nobody gets offended. We really have to up our capacity to produce world-class research products throughout the many disciplines. Indonesia has much to offer the world, in many areas: health, forestry, sustainable development, governance, the third largest democratic country in the world. We have many things to offer, and we're just not very good at narrating ourselves to the world. And this is one of the things that I personally, using my position in the University of Melbourne, have been concerned about trying to help develop through my connections and work with various partners in Indonesia. So, for example, right now we are working with University of Indonesia, Gajah Mada University, Erlangga University, and Ristek to develop a program on health resilience, which I think we thought about it in January, which was, I think, quite prescient, given what's happened since then with the pandemic and all that. But the point there is to bring in Indonesian researchers to work with our researchers so that there is a capacity building that takes place within that collaborative process. That is really my personal concern, if I may say, if I may sort of represent myself, not just my university. That is really a strong concern of mine. How we use our various relationships to increase the capacity of Indonesian scholars, of Indonesian researchers, so that they may enter and play a larger role in the world stage in their areas of expertise. And through that health resilience program, I hope that our doctors, our medical, science scholars and so on will come and be able to do work on infectious diseases, on viruses, etc., that will help Indonesia in facing the various health problems that it has as a country that's experiencing so many fast-paced changes, but also helping Indonesia to contribute to world knowledge on these sorts of areas and subjects, which, as I said earlier, Indonesia is in a good position to do so. So we'd like to bring in the researchers, but also not just the established researchers. One of the things that I have been really concerned about is bringing in that level of researcher in between postgraduates, PhDs, and your established professors, right? Now, the Indonesian government has for a long time now invested a lot of money into producing new PhDs, right? With the aim of producing more research outputs and so on, scopus publications and so on. I understand that, I'm Indonesian. But I think that one of the things that we really need to work on is to work to develop a strata of expertise focused on postdoctoral researchers, because these are the people who have done their PhDs, but they haven't really published yet, right? And if they go home directly to Indonesia from their PhDs overseas, I'm imagining overseas, frankly, and no offense to, Ibu Reini or to others, they will be sucked in to administration and into 20 hours of teaching a week and so on. And then their PhDs, will sit in somebody's cupboard for 20 years. So the plan, that I have in my head is to bring, develop these sorts of initiatives, such as in the health resilience, also developing one in the social science realm, by the way, together with Ristek and University of Indonesia, to develop this new strata, I think, of expertise, which is somewhere between, your postgraduate student and your more established PhDs. And I think that's where actually Indonesia will produce more of those, scopus sort of level publications that our government really has been investing in terms of trying to get the results, those kinds of results. So just one more point to make. Through these sorts of research, intensive collaborations where we have, I think, equal partnerships and the aim of really producing world-class research together, I think that both the Australian institution and the Indonesian institution will be in a better position then to combine together and then go for international grant applications, to various international foundations and so on that maybe will not fund an Indonesian institution because they don't have the research track record yet, will not fund an Australian institution because, well, Australia is too rich. But, but if we combine together, we might be in a good position to actually make the sorts of inroads into areas and open up new areas that and new possibilities that have not been opened before. So international sort of foundations, but private also, private industry may be interested in this, and also again, possibility of collaborations between the Australian, Indonesian government as well. So that's all I've got to say from the University of Melbourne. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. I've had the opportunity to visit your campus, a very beautiful campus in the center of the city of Melbourne. And I think you've raised some very, very interesting points, about narrative. I think we obviously have a COVID-19 narrative out here in Indonesia that we need to develop and maybe better present. And then secondly, I think you mentioned a lot of very, very good suggestions there, raising funding together, right? That's on very, very strategic. Now, if you, because you're an expert on social studies, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so quickly, within 1 minute, I want to ask you a question that everybody who is involved in this Ia-Cepa, the Indonesian-Australian Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, we've talked about industry convergence, we're talking about higher education convergence, we're talking about convergence all over multi-sectors. But from a social studies perspective, can we converge as societies? Obviously, we're both two democracies, we're open societies. Quickly, within 1 minute, could you answer that question?
Well, there are no two societies that are identical, and there are probably no two close neighbors that have histories and cultures so different than Australia and Indonesia. But it doesn't mean that there are no convergences. We both have an interest in, for example, tackling things like climate change. We both have an interest in tackling things like infectious diseases, which form a new kind of a non-traditional international security threat. We all have an interest in tackling issues of poverty. Many issues that we as citizens of the world, in Australia, Indonesia, converge in having an interest and have the kind of complementary kinds of experiences and expertise that can be combined so that you get a kind of combination that you wouldn't get if Australia, band together with Germany, as it normally does. Banding together with Indonesia will result in new things. I'm completely convinced of that. And the contributions that these sorts of collaborations will make to world knowledge, to the production of new knowledge, I think will be great and beneficial to both countries and to the broader global community.
Very good, very good. Thank you, Professor. I think that's very, very insightful input from Professor Vedi Hadiz of the University of Melbourne, whom is an Indonesian. Thank you very much. Now we move to the next speaker from University of Indonesia, one of our blue chip state universities, Dr. Baiduri Widarnako, PhD. The Zoom floor is yours to share your thoughts, please.
Thank you, Pak George. Dear distinguished colleagues, good morning for our colleagues in Jakarta and good afternoon for our colleagues in Australia. Thank you for inviting me in this event. It's an honor to virtually meet you today. For this slot, I would like to share the existing collaborations between our university, Universitas Indonesia, or we call it UI, and Australian universities. Well, the collaborations between Universitas Indonesia and Australian University has been established for decades. UI is a comprehensive public university with 14 faculties, 1 vocational program, and 2 interdisciplines postgraduate programs. In total, we have more than 40,000 students body. In general, UI has 27 partner Australian universities, and six of them are in Victoria. They are Monash University, Victoria University, University of Melbourne, RMIT, Swinburne University of Technology, and Deakin University as our youngest partner. Australia is one of our students' favorite destinations to study abroad, actually. The form of collaborations mostly in academic collaborations like joint degree programs, such as between Monash University and Faculty of Medicine, Faculty of Economic and Business, and Faculty of Administrative Sciences at UI, between University of Melbourne and Faculty of Medicine and Faculty of Engineering at UI, and the last collaborations is between Deakin University and Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, Faculty of Engineering, and Faculty of Computer Sciences at UI. In terms of mobility, we have collaboration with Monash University, University of Melbourne, and Swinburne University of Technology for student exchange, study abroad, short programs, and staff exchange. We also have joint research with mutual interest like medicine, public health, urban, water, and leaderships. Well, we still don't know when the pandemic will be over. Hence, for next year, we are preparing learning process in dual modes, online and offline, or face-to-face. For offline mode, will be for laboratory works for final students or last year students. However, if border is lifted, we are ready to and more than happy to welcome international students to come to our university and feel the experience. Also, I think I would like to mention about the collaborations. This is the time to broaden our collaborations. I mean, not only between universities, but also with government and industry, or we call it triple helix collaborations. A university as the key of knowledge, and then industry as production key, and government as key of stable interactions. I think we need to broaden our collaboration, not only with universities, but other parties. Yeah, I think that's all for me now. George, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Baiduri. In terms of collaboration, though, I mean, regarding the the pandemic and COVID and whatnot, what are your challenges in terms of collaboration? What do you think are the solutions there?
Well, the collaboration not only in the pandemics. The first one is, of course, we cannot do mobilizations here. So some research that has been planned should be halted or canceled for this year. And I'm not talking about the pandemic, but I think one of the barriers or obstacles for the collaboration is universities need more effective ways to share ideas. Universities tend to share ideas through conferences and publications, which is good, but neither format provides support for adaptations, implementation, and or scale ideas from concept to reality. So universities need a platform, maybe like a shared incubator or whatever, to collaborate and implement the idea to solve mutual problems. And also about the competition. Competition sometimes discourages collaborations. The competitive environment of higher education, like competitions to get talent, students, and research funds, works against collaborations. These competitions, although healthy, can obstruct institutions' ability to achieve collective impact, diffuse innovations, and drive needed changes in higher education. Research funding that require collaborations between universities, like pair or partnership of Australia-Indonesia research, is a good example of solutions. Me myself involved in this kind of partnerships. And also exclusivity, like current structure encourage exclusivity. Rankings and competitive metrics place a premium on maintaining exclusivity rather than broadening access. And the last problem is funding. It's a classical problem. We all agree that funding is needed to start collaborations, and university must be creative, particularly during these pandemic situations, to get funding. University may get work together with government, industry, or other funding organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Baiduri, for your input.
Well, George, you can call me Uri anyway.
Okay, thank you, Uri. Dr. Uri, thank you. Thank you for your input. I think there's a very good solutions there you shared with us. Now, the next speaker we have is Professor Andrew MacIntyre, the Pro Vice-Chancellor of Monash University. Obviously, as Phil Turtle has mentioned, Monash is the icebreaker that has established the first international university in Indonesia, or has been given the license to establish that. And so, Professor Andrew, coming from Melbourne, the Zoom floor is yours.
Good. Great to be with you, George, and with Phil, and to be with colleagues from 6 other fine Indonesian and Australian universities. Monash is really delighted to be invited to be the first foreign university to set up a campus in Indonesia. Those plans are proceeding very strongly and will be opening on schedule next year. And like colleagues from Deakin University and Melbourne University, we'll be looking to build links with other fine Indonesian universities like UPH, like BINUS, like UI, like IPB. There's a range of those research connections and education connections that already exist. And we think having a campus there will really help us to lift that to another level.
Yes, and Professor Andrew, what would you envision the Monash University in Indonesia look like? And people are asking, when can they probably begin to register? Please share your thoughts on that.
Sure. Well, let me start by telling you what it'll look like. This is going to be a postgraduate campus, George. So that means we won't be doing undergraduate students. We'll be focusing on master's students, PhD students, short courses. The academic areas that we're going to be starting with in our first year next year will be data science, urban design, business innovation, public policy and management, and public health. Our first step, of course, is recruiting a really talented faculty from across Indonesia and across the world. That process is now gearing up. Second step will be recruiting a really talented student population. There'll be information coming out on this in coming days, and we'll be open and taking applications early in the new year. So I think there's a lot to look forward to.
Thank you, Professor. And there is a question about the opportunities with partnerships, obviously with Indonesian universities, and what is the vision also of Monash in Indonesia in terms of the development of Indonesia?
So let me start with the last question there, George, and it goes to the whole purpose of Monash Indonesia. The mission, the goal of Monash Indonesia is to contribute in a really clear and strong way to the further development, the further progress of Indonesia socially, economically, technologically. That is the purpose of this campus. That is the benchmark by which it will be judged in Indonesia and inside Monash University. Partnerships are going to be really key for this. And we've been saying consistently that we're looking to partner with Indonesian public universities, with Indonesian private universities, and with Indonesian Muslim universities. And there's conversations already gearing up on that, including with people on this panel. But also, for example, with the Muhammadiyah network of universities. So we're looking to partner in research and in education in those areas of strength that I nominated. And those conversations will be really gearing up early next year.
Well, thank you, Professor. Well, that is very exciting. I can share with you that Phil Turton and I were on a call with the Chief of Staff of the Indonesian President just a few days ago, and Monash was mentioned several times. Everybody's excited about it and anticipating the Monash University Indonesia program. So I think, as mentioned by many officials, that it will definitely, as you said, support Indonesia's development in the future. And so thank you for that input. And thank you for coming in from Melbourne. Are you in the Clayton campus or are you somewhere in Melbourne, right?
I'm in a secret location, George, and if I disclosed it, my employer might be concerned.
Thank you. Well, obviously you have a very beautiful campus, and I've had the opportunity to visit that campus. Thank you. Now we go to the next speaker.
Andrew, is it really your employer that you're hiding from?
Thank you, Professor Andrew, for coming in from Monash, from Melbourne. And now we have the next speaker, and we save, you might say, the best for the last, the best the last. And she is an icebreaker, a pioneer. She is the rector of the Institute of Technology Bandung, ITB, which is Indonesia's the blue chip technology-based university. And She is the first female rector of the university. So I would say an icebreaker, a pioneer. And so we have with us, the distinguished Professor Reini Wirahadikusumah, PhD. And Professor, the Zoom floor is yours.
Thank you, Pak Iwan dan Pak George ya.
Ya, yang mana aja Bu. Okay. George Iwan dulu ya.
Thank you, and Phil, everyone, greetings from Bandung. It's about 11:30 now in Bandung. Beautiful weather. So first, thank you for having me. Please, I'm apologizing a little bit, but because I'm still learning about the potential collaboration within this Indonesia Economic Forum. So, but we look forward to fostering a concrete connection among us all, not just between ITB and Australian universities, but also our colleagues in UPH, BINUS, UI. So first, also, I would like to mention that I'm a proud recipient of Australian Awards Endeavour Award, twice actually. Yeah, so thank you, Australia. So I had a chance to visit RMIT and a few years later QUT Brisbane. So Melbourne and Brisbane. So wonderful cities. I pay attention to all the previous speakers. First, Rebecca, I met her and her team. She invited us to discuss with her team just a few weeks ago, I think sometime in October. And after that effective meeting, we follow it up with several programs, two concrete ones. One is the summer school collaboration. So it's a short-term program for Indonesian student and Australian student to interact, but now maybe through online meetings. And the second is a research program. We would like to tackle our most challenging environmental case in Indonesia, one of the most challenging case in Indonesia, which is the Citarum, a famous river in many aspects. It's also the most beneficial, but also the dirtiest, very challenging. So it is a very much a local problem, but it's a global, very global topic. So it is not it's very difficult to find a solution, but we expect our partners in Australia, which have more experience in managing their water resources. So probably we could collaborate for that Citarum, and this is supported by our governor of West Java. So these two programs, I'm very excited about the future of these two programs. And regarding research, Pak Vedi, terima kasih. We will contact you more often starting now. Salam kenal, Bapak. So he already mentioned that University of Melbourne and ITB have already strong networks. We have several visiting professors from University of Melbourne. They are very, very more of you coming to ITB. So, from Deakin, Professor Martin mentioned that for good partnership to be able to sustain, we need three things. The clarity of the purpose. So we need to pick cases, project, not too many, not too broad, but we have to find similar interests. So enable to have such a program, there's supposed to be interaction to define clarity of partnership of purpose from every partnership. And he also mentioned the mutual benefit and mutual investment. So mutual investment sometimes is the last thing that we pay attention. So of course, if you want to have mutual benefit, both parties should also put the same investment. So ITB is willing to invest, especially for professor or visiting professorship mobility, short term between Australian universities, in this case, Deakin, Monash, and Melbourne. We already set aside, allocate budget for that purpose. Not a lot, but it's a lot for our standard. So we are going to provide airfare and room and board in close to our campus, and then we would like to have you stay at ITB and then foster relationship more closely, maybe 1 month or 2 months during your summer break. And other research potentials with Australian universities. I would like to mention one more thing. ITB just awarded, we have a first place as the university, innovative university, Indonesian Innovative University. We got the first place from the Ministry of Research and Technology just a couple of weeks ago. So that is our competitive advantage. So ITB would like to be the leader in research and innovation, especially in STEM and arts. And also we are strong in management. So with Australia, I believe we can have the mutual interest in innovation of medical or health equipments, innovation in that area, COVID area, and also maybe biodiversity. Our science research group are very strong. So biodiversity in Indonesia is should be very interested for Australian. Genetics research, climate change is also very potential. So it should be win-win. Yeah, it should be win-win, and each university have their own strength, and then we should define a clear purpose for each collaboration. So what else? Oh, regarding Monash, Andrew, I'm sorry I didn't meet you in person. You visited our campus in February, I believe. Thank you for visiting us, and we will follow up your visit with more concrete programs. I think that's it. So please, have any more question, Pak Iwan? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Rector. Now, there is a question here is regarding the strategies of ITB dealing with COVID-19 pandemic, obviously in terms of teaching and learning. And Professor Iain Martin mentioned that also previously in his conversation or his remarks. And so how are you coping with that?
Yes. So we, since the beginning, I believe it was the second week of March, we right away built a task force for COVID-19 mitigation campus-wide. The task force consists of our scientists in epidemiology and health, economic, social sectors. ITB do not have medical department or health, something like that, but we do have experts in epidemiology, virus, and everything, something like that. So we use science, and this task force is work closely with us to make a decision, which is updated periodically. Like, for example, for this end of the year, we are going to update our rule gitu ya, regulation regarding campus activities, because we are preparing ourselves to open up our campus a little bit more, relaxation. We're going to let more activities to be on campus, but we have to do it cautiously and based on science, and we have to do it with the good timing and then very well prepared. So we would like to get support or knowledge from Australian universities in dealing with this or opening up our campus. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. So ITB is getting ready to open up, to have face-to-face physical. Okay, so now we're going to go a roundabout because we still have 20 minutes here, and we'll go to question and answer. But I want to kick off with Dr. Gracia again, from the Dean of the School of Economics and Business of the University Pelita Harapan. Dr. Gracia, are you still here?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Okay. So I want to ask you a question, because this is circulating and this is a real situation, and I think something that could be cooperation between Indonesian higher ed and Australian higher ed. And that is, again, back to what Professor Iain Martin has mentioned, hybrid. And this, in Indonesia, you know as well as I know, and everybody here, that affects the whole accreditation process, top down. And so how do you think, obviously you're from a private university, and a leading private university, and a very innovative private university. Pelita Harapan is a very innovative private university. How do you think we can work together, the two sectors, the higher education sector in Australia and Indonesia, with the distinguished universities here involved in Australia and the distinguished universities in Indonesia, to look at, again, coming back to the question of that hybrid and learning outcomes, and the reality that COVID-19 is not just going to go away. It's going to be here for a while, at least for the next 2 years. And as you know, as we all know here, that there was a survey by the Indonesian Ministry of Higher Education, Ministry of Education, that 90% of the students do not see that the online is effective in teaching and learning. So is there a way that we in Indonesia can converge or collaborate with the higher education sector in Australia to create those standards and assessment moving forward? Because those standard assessments, I think, are yet to be established. Please, Professor Gracia, share your thoughts.
Well, accreditation is a big, they actually have also to be more adaptive to the situations right now. I still remember, perhaps I share a little bit. One of my colleagues, Michael Malefakis of the Columbia University, around perhaps 10 years ago, was saying that actually secretly they were hiring people from the Phoenix University, and as you know, in the US, Phoenix University is the one with 100% online, and the reputation is not comparable to Ivy League, for their teaching on experimenting on the online. But of course, they will not tell that in public. But this is after 10 years, you know, like everybody knows about that. Just simply because, not just because of accreditation, but people also before a little bit kind of cautious about like how they will present that if they deliver it online, because there is this negative perceptions that it's almost like a stigma that if you have an online, it's not going to be good, it's a second class and all those stuff. But now with the price of the technology that's getting cheaper, as you remember that at one point in time, we invest a lot in the Blackboard, which is one of the learning management system that's very expensive. Then we move to Canvas and then we do for other things. Now it's actually, you can also have it for free through Moodle, you know. Then all of a sudden the cost of the technology to deliver the course is getting lower, and we can be more creative in doing this. I believe collaborations will be great if we can also share, because there is also some kind of learning curve on how we will use all this technology and maintaining what we call now live online and self-paced online. So there is this new category where they will say that is a face-to-face or the in-person class is not necessary anymore as long as you have the live online, you know, which is like a live portion is asynchronous. Now, these are actually is area where we can innovate in terms of the educational technology that can bring in a lot of collaborations. One thing is that in the old days, we love to do the business traveling, going across, you know, border to meet our counterpart. But now it's more efficient actually. With a click of Zoom, I can speak with Andrew MacIntyre, you know, like very quickly. And in a matter of 3 minutes, I can switch to somebody else to talk. So in terms of productivity, perhaps it's much better. The only missing that perhaps we still learn about is that how to engage the student. This is also one of the things because the infrastructure sometimes can get into the way, you know, so it's a little bit slow, you know, and then sometimes it's like still running, but actually is, you know, well, if you make a joke, you're teaching, if you're a professor, perhaps the laughter will be coming in after almost like 30 seconds. So it's not that nice. Where we teach in the class usually is more, you know, what do you call that? Instant that we got. But there are a lot of collaborations, and I think the stigma about having online is no longer there, and it's becoming necessity at this point in time. Even this morning, I just got a WhatsApp message from the presentations of the Higher Education's Director General, Wihardini, about lining up what we have to do in the next semester. Basically, we will go back to a hybrid class by January. You know, so university will be open by January. So there's some protocols that we have to follow, but online will be there all the time. We just adjust perhaps on the hybrid side because of the health issues and all those stuff. Capacity has to be 50% and all those stuff. But you will not be able to do that without the help of the technology. So there are a lot of learning that we can do. How to improve the student engagement, how to improve also the effectiveness of the faculty member teaching or delivering their course through this. And of course that even, you know, some kind of collaborative work perhaps is more encouraging because now we can always arrangement a meeting, you know, to do research together or to share some information or something like that. We just have to be adaptive into that new normal, you know, because this perhaps will change dramatically the way that we teach in the classroom. One of the technique that, of course, in business school, which I believe that Professor Reini is also knowing for the SPM ITB, that we believe in case method. And I believe to a certain extent, as other schools doing case method. Case method is lovely to be in the classroom with 100 students coming in from 100 backgrounds, different backgrounds. But in the online, that kind of chemistry in the class was not appearing in our screen because we did not know. They put the video, but you know, like, are they really listening or what? We don't know, right? Now, this is also one of the things that perhaps one of the skills that we have also to acquire to make it really work for things that we know is very effective, particularly like for the teaching in business school, you know, then how we adopt this, then still can produce a very good classroom interactions, for example. It's a challenge, a lot of challenge, but some schools are doing better than the others. So if we have this kind of forum or network, we can share. We can do some kind of cross-pollinations or, you know, cross-fertilization on like how you handle a lot of this kind of problems. And also the course materials is not going to be the same when we are doing the face-to-face class. So it's quite different for doing that. So this is also things that perhaps we can learn from Deakin, for example, Deakin University that been doing this for the past almost 50 years. So perhaps how to engage in that long distance kind of learning. So that's very interesting to see that how we actually also innovating in the educational technology in that. Thank you, Pak George.
Yeah, a quick question and just give a quick answer maybe. Has the accreditation system, obviously in Indonesia, factored in this hybrid and online model in terms of accreditation? Yes or no?
Yes, but it will take process, I believe. There are some conversation, even they were saying that in the, you know, for the reporting of the information that they are using right now, particularly for monitoring and evaluation system or Monash system, they're relying also on some new items that they want to put there, including also online, Merdeka Belajar and other items, which is not available in the past. So, you know, there is a shifting, but definitely it's not going to be fast. The speed is also a problem. Now, there are some accreditation body. I spoke with one colleague before in ACSB in Singapore. I was an assessor before of ACSB, and it was really interesting that they are seeing, because they also trying to capture that, because in the past, online is a little bit questionable in terms of their, you know, standards, you know. They are not saying they are saying no to that, but they always want to make sure that the students' learning is the same. Assurance of learning will be done and all those kind of stuff. So now when everybody moves to online, what's going to happen? And even that if they combine right now with the hybrid, like many universities in the US right now, until this Thanksgiving, until today, because I can see that from my own son that now attending 4 now, all of a sudden the class stopped in Thanksgiving, you know, like what, you know, it's so short. And they move immediately to online. Even that they were saying if you choose to attend online until June next year, it's completely fine. So it's a major decision. This is an Ivy League school that's now bravely saying, yes, we go 100% online. Before it was like a little bit of pussyfoot thing when they're saying, yeah, we are going online. But now I think it's about necessity to adapt into this situation instead of really questioning whether we can still charge the old tuition, you know, for basically justifying the online interaction. It's not about that, the issue now.
Yeah.
It's about access also.
Yeah. So this
it will change. I believe ACSB will change also.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. So what you're saying is accreditation will change.
Yeah.
And the Minister of Education in Indonesia, for all our colleagues here, has announced that this situation in Indonesia in the higher education sector is permanent. He announced that a few weeks ago, Mas Nadiem, Mas Menteri. So therefore, this goes back to accreditation that will change. And that means the accreditation system, most likely in Indonesia, will be deregulated and changed. That's what I'm hearing from people and from you. Now,
that's right.
To change to what? And that's going to be a benchmarking issue. And I want to go back to Professor Iain Martin, the Vice-Chancellor, or in Indonesia we say the Rector of Deakin University. Is there a possibility of Indonesia and Australia, or in this case obviously Victoria, to align the benchmarking in this particular modeling? Because then you have global standards that we can align to. Please.
Look, I think in principle there is always the possibility to align. I wouldn't underestimate the challenges in doing that. And that's not a testament to difficulties with the Indonesian-Australian relationship. It is just, we have to be realistic that it is tricky to do. But I think it should continue to be an aspiration that we work towards. And I think one of the ways of getting there is the more hybrid and shared programs we offer, the more confidence there will be from the regulator that there is equivalence of standards and equivalence of delivery. So I think it's likely to be, if we went tomorrow and said, let's do it, realistically, I don't think it would happen. But if we set out to start to work more closely together, to find ways that we can share, I think we can get there. But I think I'm just being realistic. It's something that always takes a lot longer than you expect to do.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor Iain. So this is obviously that big convergence issue, big convergence issue. Now COVID-19 presents an interesting opportunity in convergence on a systemic perspective of higher education between Indonesia and Australia. And that is the way we accredit, assess. And that is, so you triggered a very good conversation there, Professor, in your presentation earlier. And I want to now trigger this to the Rector of ITB, Professor Reini, from a systemic perspective, in terms of Indonesia-Australia economic partnership in the higher education space, there is an opportunity here of alignment of how we assess, how we accredit. Because of the COVID-19 situation, everything is going to, it looks like everything, there's going to be big deregulation. That's the way I see it from a higher ed perspective. What are your thoughts, Professor Reini?
Yeah, thank you. So, Phil, you are the president of Australia-Indonesia Business Council. Are you somehow related to the AIC, Australia Indonesia Center?
Yes, we're very proud partners with the Australia Indonesia Center.
Yeah. My colleagues mentioned that I should say this to you because earlier this year, the collaboration between G2G, Indonesia and Australia in the aspect of research through the Ministry of Research and Technology. We still have one problem that has not been solved regarding the property right, and I believe it's also about material transfer agreement that has to be resolved soon before all the other research activities that George mentioned can realize effectively. So would you please check about the progress of that agreement? Of course, it's not our ITB's issue. It's within the Ministry of Research and Technology, but we are an active partner of that agreement. And I understand our colleagues, researchers have problems because of that more higher up issue. That's number one. And number two, regarding what is your question again, George? About the potential of research?
Alignment in the accreditation, because
accreditation.
Alignment. Due to COVID-19, there's going to be a lot of deregulation, as you heard from the minister himself.
Yes.
The way he sees the education sector will be permanently online.
Okay.
What is benchmarking?
Yes.
Can Indonesia and Australia benchmark together? Go ahead.
Yes. So ITB, like I explained a little bit, our biggest asset is our academic atmosphere. So students, they love to stay on campus all day long from morning till 10 p.m. The campus is still full of students. They are gathering, talking, I don't know, whatever, sleeping in the hallways of our student center. So that is our asset, our academic atmosphere. Very open, very active, very exciting for students. And then the interaction between student and professors. So for teaching online, it's probably still okay, but if we still continue doing mostly online, research and innovation is detrimental. We cannot have exchange of ideas through talking like this with you, George, but we have to actually get to know you more personally. So in order to preserve our academic atmosphere, we need interaction. We need diversity, global interaction. So that's why we would like to have deeper connection with you in Australia. You guys can influence us with your wonderful culture, develop civic society, disciplines and everything. It will influence our work ethics, our students, our professors. So we would like to have that from you, and probably you could learn a little bit about us too. We are very friendly people, and we are also smart, So I believe we do have a very similar understanding about collaboration. So in order to preserve academic atmosphere, we need you. We need collaboration with Australia and also our colleagues nationally.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Now, one more minute to Professor Andrew MacIntyre on this alignment, convergence. Professor Reini gave a good perspective on that, Professor Iain and Dr. Grace. And before Phil and I need to wrap up, but one more minute, probably Professor Andrew from Monash University, just give your thoughts on that. You need to unmute, Professor.
Sorry, George. Let me come at that from a different angle and pick up on something Professor Reini said earlier in her remarks when she talked about the great work that ITB and other institutions are doing around the Citarum River. One of the things that just impresses me with what Indonesian universities are doing on that project is the multidisciplinarity of it. There's all sorts of different disciplines, from engineering through public health, through environment, all the way. I was fascinated to discover ITB's artists. Art school is actively involved in this and doing all sorts of things. I know whether it's Deakin University, Melbourne University, or Monash or any other Victorian university, we're all thinking hard about how interdisciplinarity is going to drive our research agendas. And I think that's something that Australian universities, particularly Victorian universities, can do really nicely with Indonesian universities.
Thank you, Professor. So it's very good. Now, I would like to get roundabout to everyone, but we're going to have a hard stop because, again, this is technology, and when technology cuts you off, it cuts you off. And so I'm going to close this session with final remarks with Phil. And so, Phil, you've heard the perspectives here. Obviously, industry convergence through higher education as a driver has been talked about, incubation, innovation. That's definitely within Ia-Cepa. But alignment in higher ed in the systemic perspective. And so you can see these perspectives come in. Share your thoughts before we close this session, which will have a hard stop at 12 o'clock. Go ahead.
Certainly, and thank you, Pak George. A typically great job of guiding the panel through this conversation. You know, you've already captured some of the key learnings and messages from this panel. But of course, thank you again to all of our panelists for a very vibrant and interesting discussion. As our session comes to an end, I'd like to reflect briefly on just a few of the points made by our speakers. All of the panelists have made some great insights into what the broad range of partnerships are already in place and what the future may look like. Minister Brodjonegoro, in his opening, made mention of Indonesia's ambition to be a high-income country by 2045 and highlighted the challenges of escaping the middle-income trap and the role that research, innovation and collaboration will play. This, of course, is underpinned by a strong higher education sector, delivering highly skilled new workers into the workforce. Dr. Gracia from the Universitas Pelita Harapan encouraged collaboration beyond just the exchange of students into joint research, internships, and sharing of industry experience. And that, along with enhancing the student experience, is important for success. Together, the quality of graduates, lecturers, and the curriculum are areas we can work together on. Professor Martin from Deakin, who has a long history with Indonesia, despite being a relatively young university, suggests the expanded use of technology to augment and build relationships and partnerships beyond what has been done before, and that hybrid delivery will underpin Deakin's future and how you get this mix right is critical to the success of all institutions. Dr. Diah from BINUS spoke fondly of her own education experiences in Australia and talked of utilising their networks in innovative ways for collaboration, with a wish list to develop innovative programs, energising faculty mobility and see more Australian students coming to BINUS. Dr. Baiduri from the University of Indonesia noted their already successful partnerships with Monash and Melbourne University with strong student numbers, and I note that Minister Bambang was a former Dean of the Faculty of Economics at UI, so some impressive alumni. Professor Reini from ITB talked about her own experience with Australia Awards at RMIT and QUT and ramping up the already strong connection with University of Melbourne, including in visiting professors for mutual benefit and with mutual investment. As an engineer myself, and with Indonesia's first president, Sukarno, being an engineering graduate from ITB, I always feel a strong affinity. And I will, of course, share your comments regarding AIC with them. And lastly, to my friend Professor Vedi Hadiz, he reflected on the complementarities between Indonesia and Australia and our common interests in a range of issues that we can collaborate on, such as climate change, infectious diseases and poverties, examples in which we could collaborate despite our quite different cultures. All of these ideas and many others will together see a tremendous array of new partnerships, collaborations and programs emerge. I would give one final mention of Monash and Professor MacIntyre and the establishment of their Indonesia campus, whose mission and goal is to contribute in a meaningful way to the success of Indonesia across many dimensions. This really is an exciting initiative and a great exemplar of what can be done. I once again thank Global Victoria and in particular Joe Hashim for curating this session and the Indonesia Economic Forum for hosting us. It is my pleasure to now hand back to Pak Shoaib to formally close the session. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Phil, and thank you, George, for moderating the session and for helping us to host this session. I think this is a real example of collaboration. I'm standing in Jakarta, George is in Jogja, and Phil is in Melbourne, or Perth.
Perth today.
Perth, that's right. Really, thank you so much also to the panelists. I think this was the most highly educated panel that we have had over the last 3 days of the Indonesia Economic Forum. It's also a great example of the collaboration between Indonesia and Australia, given that there was so much toing and froing all on Zoom and all on virtual. But I think the point made that at the end of the day, human-to-human relationships are going to be critical to collaboration, whether it's in higher education or whether it's in business. Under the chapter between Indonesia and Australia, I think this collaboration and interaction between Australians and Indonesians from all walks of life is going to be critical. And I think the highest education sector is going to be one of the main drivers of this new, what we can call this new era of collaboration. So thank you very much to all the panelists. I won't mention you by name one by one, but really a heartfelt thank you to all of you for taking your time, sharing with us your deep insights and ideas. Thank you to Phil, George, and of course VGTI for your collaboration and partnership with the Indonesia Economic Forum, Rebecca Hall for your support, and lastly to Joe Hashim for helping to curate this session and putting it all together. So thank you very much. We hope to continue our partnership going into 2021 and doing a lot more innovative and exciting collaborations. God bless. Stay safe.